What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is Take It Slow here, aka Angry Reporter, aka Clancy, aka too many goddamn nicknames. And I guess we're adding one more damn thing to that list, and that is the voice of Freeman. The really stupid, maybe more interesting, but very much less intelligent Freeman. So yeah, I'm coming to you guys today, and I want to talk about Black Mesa, the fan-made Half-Life 1 remake that was released earlier this year, or whenever you're listening to this. It was released in March of 2020. Yeah, it is. It's a fucking blast. TLDR, it's a blast. Go buy it. And yeah, I want to talk about it a little bit. I finished it the other night and got a lot of emotions, a lot of thoughts. So let's get into it. So the first like 3/4 of the game is a very faithful remake of the original Half-Life. The graphics are all updated. All the gun animations and sound are updated. It brings it to a modern, I would say a modern scare quote level. I mean, this isn't your AAA shooter, but compared to the original gameplay, it really looks a lot better. It sounds a lot better. It's just, it's a remake. It's an overhaul. What I found most enjoyable was how close the game still feels like the original, and it's kind of hard to describe that, but sometimes what can get lost in remakes is sort of the essence of the game, sort of how you move about the world, you know, collision and hitboxes and all that stuff. This still feels like Half-Life 1, if not a little better. I would say some of the hitboxes are even better, more accurate. The mouse is a little smoother. It still feels like Half-Life 1, and they actually got rid of a few things as well. You know, in the original Half-Life, it kind of felt like Gordon was on skates or on ice all the time. That's still there to some degree. You still get a bit of momentum and movement, but that's been taken away, which makes the game just flow a lot better. You know, you're not kind of getting stuck on walls and sliding off of platforms where you very much were in the original. I've never actually played Half-Life 1 Source. Valve did release Half-Life 1 in the Source engine a while back. I'm not sure if that was addressed there, but they've definitely addressed it in Black Mesa. Honestly, it's really hard to nitpick anything in the Black Mesa section. Again, it's a very, I wouldn't say it's a 1-to-1. I'd say it's like a 1-to-1 plus remake. You know, there are some places where it's definitely a 1-to-1 remake of all the levels, and there are some places where they did take a little bit of creative liberty, you know, expanded, you know, certain doors that were not open in the original, or open certain areas that were a little more basic or expanded upon. It's mostly what you remember with rezzed up graphics and combat animations and sounds. It's excellent. It's superb. I have almost no complaints about it. What's actually surprising, and again, I almost have to go back and play the original to see if it was this way in the original, but the AI for the Marines in particular feels like they're actually it's some of the best AI I've ever played against, to be honest. You know, they really do their best to flank you, to shoot and cover. As you start to shoot them and they take damage, they can run away. You know, there's a few points in the game where I shot a guy a few times and he was like kind of trolling me while like hiding around a corner. Be like, oh, my leg, type stuff like that. So again, I'd be interested to play the original and see how if this is an actual AI buff from Black Mesa, or if this is just carried over scripting from the original game. But the AI in particular, I thought was superb, even going up against some of your modern shooters. A lot of modern shooters, it can feel like the AI is kind of like pointless, where they almost like know that they're just cannon fodder, where they'll just run straight at you, or they'll shoot at you but take cover, but not really like rally other people. Or, you know, the Marine AI and even some of the alien AI in this game, although some of the alien AI could use some work. For the Vortigaunts, for example, sometimes they would spawn in random places and then you'd shoot them a few times and they'd have this scripting that would tell them to flee, but there wasn't anywhere for them to flee. This happened mostly in like the Lambda core level. Yeah, I do feel like that's probably some scripting issues, given that they're working with a really old game. But honestly, for the most part, the before the Zen chapter this year was released, completing this mod, the Black Mesa section alone was worth a play. It hits all the classic Half-Life 1 vibes, and just again updated, up-rezzed. It was a blast to play. You know, my nostalgia meter was going off. I want to speak mostly about the Zen section of Black Mesa because it's pretty much an entirely new experience. One of the biggest complaints about the original Half-Life was how top shelf the Black Mesa facility was, and then how it just kind of fell off a cliff in Zen. Zen was kind of a disjointed, almost like uninteresting mess, and that was a little surprising because you're going to Zen, you're going to this border world where all these aliens are from, and it really felt like a drag. And it was maybe even less than a quarter of the game. Zen in Black Mesa is probably, it's still probably about the same length, maybe like a quarter to a third of the game, and I think that's the right amount of time for the final chapters. But the Black Mesa team, the Crowbar Collective, really overhauled Zen into an entirely new and, in my opinion, vastly superior experience. Some of those even smallest details here really flesh this game out and connect it to the Half-Life 2 universe. For example, the Vortigaunts, they really go out of the way showing that the Vortigaunts are slaves. Of course, they're wearing shackles, but there are a couple sections in Zen where Vortigaunts are not hostile to you. It wasn't so overt as Half-Life 2 where they're communicating with you, but some of them would help you. They would like, there was a section where Vortigaunts, say, hey, take that portal. That's the way out of here. They didn't say that, but they'll like point to it. So I appreciated how they used where the lore went in Half-Life 2, sort of backtracked that and filled it in for this mod. And again, this is a fan-made mod, which makes it all the more impressive. This is not Valve doing it. This is not an indie studio. Although I guess they're an indie studio now. But yeah, this started out as a fan-made thing, and I guess they turned into their own little studio after doing it, or in the process of doing it, which is speaks to the high quality of the project. It also really fleshed out how in the dark the Anomalous Materials crew in Gordon was in terms of Black Mesa's knowledge of Zen. We really got to see the Black Mesa and humanity's expedition into Zen, and that, oh no, this wasn't by accident. We've been fucking around here, and all this resonance cascade stuff. They don't flat out say it, but it's pretty alluded to and basically confirm that it was intentional. And you see that in Zen as you travel around and find the various science facilities that they set up. Some of it harkens back to like the Alien franchise, very like space horror. You also get some beautiful scenery in Zen. It's just it's good stuff. The Interloper chapter in particular felt pretty long, but I remember in the original game it was just a miserable drag, and I never quite understood what was actually going on. Whereas in Black Mesa, everything is just much more thought out and well designed. You'll have various puzzles. It feels like Half-Life. It doesn't feel like this disjointed mess that the original Zen felt like. And again, the Crowbar Collective, this little indie studio, really did a good job of honoring sort of the original design for the game and saying, okay, what was the creative direction of Half-Life? What were they trying to do? Let's try and recreate that. Let's try and pay homage to that. You also really get a sense of the stakes of this alien invasion now in the Interloper chapter in particular. In the original, it didn't quite spell it out as clearly what the intentions of the main villain and all these aliens that you're fighting, what are they planning to do. Obviously you open up a portal between our world and theirs, so they're seeping through and attacking us, but it really becomes obvious as you're playing through Zen again, particularly in the Interloper chapter, like, oh, this main villain is like literally breeding, creating, whatever you want to call it, bioengineering an army to attack our dimension, and we have to stop it or everything back home is fucked. Granted, as we play Half-Life 2, you realize that everything back home is fucked anyways. But you at least stop this threat, which is spoilers, guys. You win. You're the hero. You win. But again, it really ups the ante and makes you feel the stakes a whole lot more. The Gonarch boss fight in this game, in particular. So there's two boss fights. There's Gonarch and then there's Nihilith at the end. I'll talk about Gonarch first. It's a much more hectic and frightening experience than the original. The original, you kind of just do a bunch of damage, it runs away. Do a bunch of damage, it runs away. And then I remember in the original, there was a way you could actually just cheese killing Gonarch. You could kind of just throw 10 grenades on top of its head at a certain place, and it can't attack you from anywhere. And then you just basically explosive spam it to death. This one, you spend most of the Gonarch encounter running your ass off from this giant head crab queen boss thing, and it was a terrifying experience, but it was challenging in its own sort of, oh my god, there's a monster chasing me type way. But then it does make it clear when, okay, it's time to fucking fight. It's just, again, it's an excellent boss encounter. I'm trying to give an analog to some other game. One isn't coming to me right now, but yeah, it's the first sort of real boss encounter in this game. It happened so late, but it was a great time. Nihilanth, I never quite know how to pronounce that. There's a much more like cinematic boss in a way, better than the original still. The original, again, there was a couple ways where you could cheese the boss. I'm sure there are ways you can cheese it in this one. For example, in the original, you could take the, what do we call them? Like the launching vagina pads, that's what I call them. You could take it up to a certain point and then just like hide behind this rock, and then all of Nihilanth's attacks are just hit the rock, and you could just kind of spam all your weapons into its head until it dies. There's even the ability to, if you time it right, you can take the launching vagina pads. You can take those and land on Nihilanth and then just kill it with a crowbar. All that's gone. This Nihilanth encounter is completely new. Again, a lot more cinematic, better in a lot of ways. I had a few complaints. There's a lot of like particles on the screen. There's like laser death ray type shit shooting coming at you. Teleports a lot of like debris, both from like earth and like rocks and all that shit, and it can send it at you from really hard angles to figure out. It's really, most of the fight is really you just using your jump module to avoid a whole bunch of crap. I didn't like all the screen clutter, but it was actually easier in my opinion than Gonark. For Nihilanth, it was really just like, use your jump jets, don't get hit by shit, spam all your guns on the thing, and eventually it dies. There's some obvious fight mechanics. Again, not going to spoil anything, but there's obvious fight mechanics and how to kill the thing. It's all pretty easy to figure out while you're playing. Oh, and I guess I should talk a little bit about the new jump module. So instead of doing this whole messy like shift jump or crouch jump thing that the original game had you do, this game just has you double tap the space bar, which makes it so much easier to use. You also have, once you get to Zen, landing jets, so you actually don't take any fall damage in Zen, which is another improvement in my opinion. Yeah, it's all around, like, Zen is really, it's hard. I don't want to take away anything from Black Mesa, because I think the Black Mesa section was exceptionally well done as well, but the Black Mesa section was very much a recreation, whereas Zen is an entirely new experience. Both of them together, it really elevates Half-Life to an even higher level than I think it already was. I mean, it's already very widely regarded as one of the best shooters of all time. I think this mod makes it even better, to be frank, because, you know, with the classic game, it was like most of the game was exceptional, and then there's that Zen part at the end that's kind of annoying. But this like makes Zen on par with the rest of the Black Mesa facility, and again, it has me a bit of a loss for words, to be honest. It makes not only this mod exceptional, but Half-Life 1 exceptional again in the year 2020. So for cons, again, I guess I sort of touched on some of them. The game sort of still can feel outdated compared to your modern shooters, but that's sort of intentional. This game is meant to preserve the essence of the original Half-Life. If you went into this expecting your modern first-person shooter gameplays, you're going to be disappointed. In this game, all you have are your weapons and your wits. There's no like peeking around corners. There's no cover. There's no bash. It's just you sort of turning a corner and fighting the next mob or solving the next puzzle. That's it. And that simplicity is part of what made Half-Life so good, and it's what this mod has retained. But yeah, don't go into this expecting, you know, modern Call of Duty type first-person shooter mechanics. It's just not what this game is. So in terms of length, the game took me about 20 hours. Granted, I blew through the Black Mesa section pretty easily. I'd played Half-Life. I can't even tell you how many times I've played it since it came out over the years. I played it a lot. A lot of it was very familiar to me, so I probably burned through that quite a bit quicker than someone who is going into this for the first time. Zen took me a bit longer than it probably would have normally. Again, it's just because the entire Zen is an entirely new experience. And when I say entirely new experience, I do want to clarify, I guess. There are some sections that are very, very clearly draw upon the intent of the original. Again, going back to the interloper section, you find yourself in this alien factory type place, but it just was not as fleshed out in the original. But it's clearly pulling from it. So Zen took me a bit longer than normal, but that was just because, you know, I was experiencing it for the first time, and it was good shit. Zen also really allows you to use some of your energy weapons in a way that the original didn't. You know, in Zen there are these energy crystals that power up all your energy weapons in various sections of the game. In the original Half-Life, you would get your, I think it's called the Gauss rifle, and then your gluon gun. You get it so late in the game, but I never felt like you could really like use them to their full extent. Zen really opens up the energy weapon use in this game, and at times you can feel like a little overpowered, because there are certain sections where you basically have unlimited ammo, for the energy weapons, but the circumstances are so chaotic and frenetic that it's like, oh, no shit, I have infinite ammo. This is a very hard encounter. I need infinite ammo for this. I guess you could say the downside to all this is that this is a Steam exclusive game. You know, you're not going to find this on any console. Obviously, you're not going to find this on the Epic Store or on GOG. This is a Steam only product. And yeah, that's mostly because this is a Valve-sanctioned fan mod, and it was so good that they allowed them to sell it. And you know, they're selling it for $20. Again, it took me 20 hours. I'm an experienced Half-Life player, about $1 an hour. Again, not that price always indicates value for a video game. That's very much a subjective call. It's gonna be up to you. But again, for re-experiencing arguably one of the best first-person shooters of all time, definitely like maybe if not the best first-person shooter on PC. You know, a lot of people will argue about, you know, Halo and Half-Life and go back and forth. We're talking about first-person shooters for the PC. Half-Life's right up there. If you're a Half-Life fan, this is a must-buy. I can't speak highly of it enough. And if you again, $20, one of the best first-person shooters of all time. If you've never played Half-Life and you wonder what all the hype's about, get this thing. Get Black Mesa. I can't speak highly enough of it.
Do it.
All right, folks. So I think that'll do it. Coming along is going to be, you know, I've had a lot of fun playing as the stupid, chaotic voice of Freeman. So I'm going to have a Half-Life 2 Let's Play up on the channel soon. And then I'm probably going to go back and do Opposing Force and Barney. And I'm going to have really shitty accents, but who gives a shit? It's fun. It's fun as hell for me. So I hope you enjoyed this review. Let me know what you think down below. And it's been Take It Slow, Angry Porto, Clancy, too many goddamn nicknames, and the fucking voice of freedom. Freedom, wow. And the voice of freedom. I said freedom again. I said voice of freedom twice. Apparently I'm the voice of freedom, guys. Okay, I'm the voice of freedom. Voice of Freeman. Signing off. Catch y'all next time.
Take it slow.